Good evening, and welcome to Cooking Better with Grey Harp. In these videos, I plan on helping you learn how to cook better than what DrLemur is cooking, which, you know, I mean, it is what it is, I guess. It shouldn't be that difficult. But I'm also going to try to help DrLemur be able to cook better, ultimately, because he's going to kill somebody. What I'm first going to prepare in this first segment of videos will be spaghetti and meatballs. And I know it's kind of strange to be cooking spaghetti and meatballs when it's hot outside, but I think it's a basic, easy meal that any family should be able to prepare for their guests. So anyway, I personally like to make my own spaghetti sauce. Don't like to buy the sauce that comes in a can. Or that comes in a jar, like ragu or whatever. I just like to get a basic tomato sauce and add what I want to add to it. The first flaw that I believe DrLemur made in making his pasta was the type of pasta that he used. The shell something or other that, you know, I mean, I understand he said that was all he could find, so, you know, he was working with what he could, but I prefer to use angel hair pasta. I actually only have linguine and something that they're just simply calling spaghetti. Let's see how much of this is left. I'm probably going to use the rest of this box and maybe a little bit of the linguine noodles. But so I'm going to get this to a rolling boil, and I usually set everything at medium. Any higher than medium, you run the risk of burning food, unless you're just quickly sauteing something. But typically, I mean, I've never really had to go above medium on my stovetop. So what I did was I put some extra virgin olive oil in with the water that I'm going to boil. The oil helps in separating the pasta whenever you strain it so that it doesn't stick together. And then you also want to put some salt into your boiling water, and that's supposed to help it boil faster. Once you've touched raw meat, anything that you touch in your kitchen can be contaminated. So since I'm using these seasonings, I'm working them in. I just touched the meat to kind of mash it down. I had to go wash my hands because I can't touch my seasonings after my hands have been contaminated. And just to make a note, DrLemur, I really, really hope that you threw that butter out, that you had some raw meat in. Otherwise, I mean, if anybody has been like vomiting in your household in the past couple weeks, it's probably because you contaminated the butter. Yes, you can't use any utensils on anything that isn't going to be cooked at a very, very high temperature, or you run the risk of getting very, very sick. So I'm going to season this now. After I'm done doing this, another thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add 2 eggs. And that's really just because the eggs kind of make the meat a little more tender, so that it's not like shoe leather when you eat it. And also, the eggs make the meatballs stay together. They congeal the meat to itself, so it doesn't fall apart and get everywhere. So technically what I can do here is I can switch straight to getting my meatballs in the pan. You always want to work with the things that need cooked the longest first. It makes perfect sense, right? The sauce is the last thing I'm going to make. I have to let this pan get hot for a few minutes here. And once it gets good and hot, that's when I'm going to put the meatballs in. You don't ever put the meat in before the pan gets really hot because they'll just absorb up all of the oil. You want your pan to get really hot so that the oil just seals in the flavors rather than soaking into the meatball. Now simultaneously, while I'm waiting for the pan to heat up and getting the meatballs going, I'm going to start cutting up the vegetables that I'm going to be using in my sauce. I like to use some fresh tomato, some onion, some fresh garlic, and some Italian seasoning, salt and pepper. Probably some crushed red pepper to give it a little bit of a kick. And so you can work while you're waiting. You can work on getting the rest of the meal prepped for cooking. This garlic had some bad pieces on it. I'm trying to cut them off. Not really bad pieces, just like bruises. Now for my garlic, I like to use my big giant knife. I really don't have the proper utensils for chopping things up, so I use this big giant knife. It seems to work the best. Yeah, but it's freaking huge. But there are my meatballs, and I happen to have some extra meat that I couldn't fit in the pan. So what I'm going to do with that extra meat is I'm going to cook it up in the sauce, and that way it'll, yeah, so it'll be like a meat sauce and a meatball. What you got to do here while these are cooking is every so often you got to turn them. Get them brown on all sides, and like I have way too many meatballs in this pan, and that's, you know, it's gonna be kind of annoying. But these meatballs will take a while to cook because they are large, but they're gonna be yummy. I gotta put this camera down so I can turn them. This is just kind of like a side comment, but what were you doing using nutmeg in meat, Dan? I mean, I don't know, I guess there could be people that do that, but nutmeg is really, really strong, and typically I've only ever had it in sweet things like pumpkin pie, pies. Yeah, don't do that anymore. That's weird. Don't do that. Oh, and another thing, okay, like, alright, this is tomato sauce. Now, tomato paste is just thickened sauce. So the reason your sauce tasted really tomato-y was because it was paste. It was like, it was really thick. You could have used it, but what you needed to do was put it into a pan and thin it out with some water. This is what sauce looks like, okay? Not paste. I have used paste before though, but you have to thin it out with some water. So what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna wait till my meatballs look a little more cooked. Till they're at least cooked on the outside. They might still be pink on the inside, but you want them to be cooked on the outside so that you don't contaminate your sauce. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to add pretty much everything in this pan to the sauce. Because I might drain them a little bit, but I just like the flavors to all kind of mesh together. And then once I add the meatballs to the sauce, I'm going to use the same pan to kind of chop up this meat and then add it to the sauce. So, just gotta wait for the meatballs. And the water's starting to come to a boil, but not completely yet. Okay, so as you see here, I have the remaining hamburger meat, just like I said, the tomatoes, the onions, and the garlic. I'm going to let this cook fully, cook all the red off of the meat, and then I'm probably going to strain half or a little bit more of the burger fat out of there before adding it to the sauce. But all the flavors that are in here are going to go in here, and then I'm going to even season this a little bit more. Right now we've got some boiling water, so I'm actually going to turn that up a tad, and I'm going to put the pasta in. Okay, I've turned down the heat on the sauce for a minute here because I am going to add a few more things to it. Gosh, it really is bubbling. I'm going to put some more Italian seasoning that I put in the meatballs. I'm going to put that in the sauce. We're going to need salt because after all it is just tomato sauce or tomato paste. And we're going to put pepper. I'm not going to add a lot of pepper because I'm going to add some crushed red pepper to make it a little spicy. You don't want to go too crazy with it because I'll tell you what, it sure does pack a punch. Wow, that was really cheesy. So I'm stirring this in to make it nice and yummy, hopefully. Oh, God, that scared me. So we've got this nice thick sauce of meat and tomatoes and onions and garlic, and hopefully it's going to be delicious. And what I am actually going to try to find my biggest meatball and cut into it and see what's going on. See how much longer we have to wait. Well, it's looking almost done. Not much longer, so that's good.